Gotcha. Continue. There we go. I'm Monique Smith. I'm one of the co-presidents. We'll have all of our folks kind of unmute or wave, say hi. I'm one of the co-presidents of Houston's Home and School, and the other co-president is Emily.
Hi.
And then there's Jamie and Jamie. So there's Jamie, whichever Jamie wants to unmute. Say hi.
Hi, I'm Jamie Longo. I'm the HSA secretary, and tonight I'm also the Houston HSA Zoom account, as opposed to my own Zoom account.
And then Asia is in the car, but I'm sure she can unmute and say hi.
Yeah, we are safely parked. I'm Asia Davis. I am the vice president of the Houston HSA.
And then Jamie Ford.
Hi, I'm Jamie Ford. I'm the treasurer. Currently on the bike trying to pick up the kids.
Awesome. Yeah. Just for those of you who may not have seen us or met us all together at one place, but we are your Houston HSA Executive Board. And we are really excited to kind of start off this year, which is a very different school year, and make sure that we are living up to what we really want to do, which is to be a voice for parents and families at Houston, and to bridge the gap and bridge the connect between the school and the principal and teachers and administration and families and parents. That's really our goal here. And so we'll go to the next slide. This is really a lot of information that we'll share today. And really want to leave a lot of time for you guys to share your thoughts and share with us what's going on so that we can know what kind of what we need to do. So a few housekeeping things. One, we did not get a chance to get the budget for this year sort of solidified because we sort of ended abruptly in March. So the meeting that we would have had that would have outlined the budget for this coming year and all the things that we plan to do sort of got deferred and deferred and deferred. And we're actually going to defer it one more time. And the reason that we're doing that, so this first two things go together, is so that we have a chance to kind of see what the lay of the land is. You know, we're only about a week into virtual instruction. We don't really know what it's going to look like. Hopefully we have a better sense of what things will look like come the October meeting. And so therefore, we're going to try and hold out a little bit on what we plan to do and what we plan to do budget-wise in order to sort of get a sense of what's going on. So what we need to do budget-wise, that all these things sort of go together, we will bring to families at the October meeting. If in the meantime you have things that you're like, wow, I really wish HSA would do or could do these things, you'll have an opportunity to sort of share with us anyway in this meeting, but you are always welcome to inbox any of us on Facebook or send an email to the Houston HSA email address, which is HSA Houston or Houston HSA at Gmail. Emily.
Houston HSA, and it's at the end of the slides, which we'll send to everybody who's registered.
Yes, so you guys will have an opportunity to share with us things that you're like, I really wish Houston would do. I know one of the projects we had started planning for last year was the library. We're not really sure what that will look like or what the use of that space will actually be able to be. And so we don't want to, pour funding into that when it may be more prudent to pour funding into something else. So we want to make sure that we are just being conscious of how we're doing what we're doing, and want to make sure we're getting your input. So that's sort of our housekeeping piece. We will have a meeting in October. It will have the planning for the year, budget allocations, and an approval of the bylaws will all be in that meeting. Next slide, please. All right, so these are helpful Houston contexts because we are in a very interesting time when it's like, who do we talk to for what? So we added this slide to just give people sort of an update on who to talk to about what things. So enrollment questions, anything that you have about enrollment or who's in what class or where somebody is, that sort of thing. Those are all Ms. McKenzie, who's a school-based teacher leader. The absence notifications, if your child will be absent, is really, really important that you are sending that notification to Ms. Rivers. If your child is excuse me, for example, in an upper grade, meaning that they're 3 and up, and so they have 2 teachers, it's really important, even if they're going to miss part of the day or one teacher and not the other, that you send that notice to Ms. Rivers at Houston Attendance so that she can make sure that attendance is properly collected. We'll talk about why that's super important in a minute. Tech issues, anything technology-wise, Zoom won't log on, my laptop won't work, I don't know, the Chromebook is not getting onto some sort of device or app that a teacher needs, you can email HoustonTech6220@gmail.com so that somebody can help you with your tech issue. Because frequently what's happening is people are calling like the office, and so Ms. Rivers is kind of trying to field tech questions, but that's not really her lane. So the Houston Tech Gmail is the best way to sort of get in touch with folks. And of course, our home and school contact is houston@hsa@gmail. Always, you're welcome to email us. Usually Emily or myself or Jamie are looking at the emails pretty consistently throughout the day. So if it's something that's like urgent, we will try to get to it, but as urgently as possible, but you're always welcome to contact us at that Gmail. Next slide. All right. PBIS virtual kickoffs. So they're having their first positive behavior incentive, basically, for students. If I am correct, it is related to like their class dojo points, which I think that school-wide is trying to do, but it's during the day, 12 to 12:30. Emily, do you have any further details on the PBIS other than?
I don't, other than what was posted on Dojo. I didn't hear any other details about it yet.
Yeah. So
I think it's just explaining what PBIS is and what the expectations are for the year is what I've heard.
Yeah, so it's just explaining to kids what that means. PBIS is sort of like the goal with PBIS is to positively incentivize children to behave in the ways that they would want them to behave, as opposed to a more punishment first sort of approach. Rather than punishing children who are not doing the right thing, the goal is to incentivize children to do the right thing. It's just a different posture as it relates to behavior. And Houston is a PBIS school, and so we are excited to see what that will look like throughout this year. Next. Back to school night. Thursday, there's 2 sessions. Your child's teacher will be sending the link so that you can log into whatever session 1, session 2, if you want to go to either or, if you have more than one child. It's very similar to how back to school night was in the past, which is, there's kind of 2 sort of rounds. That's on the 17th. All these things are on Dojo. They're also on Constella. But your child's teacher will send the Zoom link for you to be able to log in to do the virtual back to school night. It's a great time to bring questions for your child's teacher. By the 17th, we will have had some days in. And so it's a great time to bring questions, thoughts. Hey, this is working. Hey, this isn't. Can you help us with this sort of things to your child's teacher? If you have particular concerns or you're not really sure if your child's teacher can do the thing that you want or that sort of thing, you're also welcome to email us at Houston HSA. I think for those of you who've met me before, I am an educator. I taught in the school district for quite some time. There's a lot of like logistical things that are possible that you may not know are possible, or things that you may need or want, that we want to make sure that you have the sort of have the background knowledge to know what to ask for and how to ask to make sure that you get what you need for your kid. So you're welcome to email us if you have questions ahead, but be sure to please ask your child's teacher for whatever they need or whatever you need. And back to school night is that night, Thursday, September 17th. That is also the same night of the school board meeting, is it not? School board meeting is that same night, the 17th, from 5 to whatever time. I think there was one that lasted until almost 1 a.m. Written testimony can be submitted in advance. It is really important. We'll talk about when we get to that slide. Yeah, written testimony is super important. And the more we can send, the better off we will be. Go to the next slide, please. Nope, go back. Materials pickup. So these are just dates, and then I'll go back to what's important at the school board meeting. Materials pickup on Friday, next Friday, from 9 to 11 or from 5 to 6. If you are missing things, and there will be some more things that will be in this round of pickups. And so if you're missing things, or you have other things you need, or you're missing like workbooks and things like that, make sure that you are, hold on just a second. Sorry. Just got a text message. Emily, can you read that and then you share whatever? Just read whatever he said. Just got a text message from Principal Hall. So to pick up items, Friday, September 18th, 9 to 11 or 5 to 6, in order to get more materials for your child. Asia?
Yeah, and I asked Mr. Hall in person and on the post that he made, just because that's the type of parent and HSA parent that I am. I asked him a lot of questions. And he said that this is an additional pickup for every single student. It's not just the ones that are missing this book or that dry erase board. So there will be materials for everyone. And it's also really good that they listened when parents were like, hey, trying to get there during this time slot during the workday is really difficult. So I was glad to see that they not only rolled out that earlier time, but also something a little bit later in the day for people as well.
On that topic, we had talked about this before, but didn't get it coordinated. But
You have a good day.
I live close to the school, and I know like Asia lives close to the school. There's a couple of us that do. If there's parents who really can't make it and they need materials picked up, I'm sure that we can coordinate that with Principal Hall or Miss McKenzie, so that, you know, one of us, like a proxy, can pick up your stuff, and then you could pick it up from our porch whenever you can get there. That's fine too. Happy to act as a resource in that way. We understand how difficult it is to juggle everyone's schedules right now. So happy to help if we can.
We ready to move to the next slide?
Yes, sorry. I was reading Principal Hall sent a message while we were in this meeting. All right, so upcoming HSA plans. These are the things that we are thinking about already that we sort of have had on deck. And then what our goals are, and then I'll share some things with you and give you guys an opportunity to share. The first thing we've been thinking about is a book barn / supply shed. We want to sort of create something outside the school where we can house like leveled books for kids. So like a kindergarten through second grade bin, a 3rd through 5th, a 6th through 8th, or even like a kinder bin, 1st, 2nd, so that families, because they're not in schools, not in the building, children are not having access to the library or their classroom libraries like they typically would. And so wanting to make sure that they have access to books, we want to make sure that we have some option like that. I know we have those smaller sort of like outdoor library sort of book, sort of looked like a birdhouse, like those smaller ones, but we're thinking something a little bit larger that gives more families access. The goal here is not for it to just be for Houston students. We want this to be something the community can use and participate with, whether you go to Houston or not. In addition with that, we're thinking about supplies like toiletries and things like that, that we may be able to, you know, donate to the community in a way, and allowing to have a space for something like that also. We had looked into or considered one of the refrigerators. I don't know if you've seen those. There's one in Germantown somewhere. There's another one in Kensington. However, the school district is really funny about food and where it is and then who it belongs to. And then if something happens and somebody gets sick, and then they want to sue the school district. And so they have sort of put the kibosh on that part. But the supply shed and the book barn are definitely options that we can use. The other thing that we want to do is really engage the entire Houston community, especially now because we are virtual. There's so many of us who are sort of like in our child's classroom in a way that we typically would not have been. And so that means that we have the opportunity to like say hi to parents or see other parents and things like that. Our goal is to do a Constella membership drive. Constella is the easiest way for us to do things like classroom parents, for you to contact just the children in your child's classroom, things like that. Class Dojo is a great way to find out what's happening in the school, but in order for us to collaborate with one another and for parents to collaborate with one another, Class Dojo doesn't really have the functionality for that, and Constella does that. And so the first thing we're announcing is the Constella membership drive. We're asking everybody who's here, everybody who's watching, everybody who watches later, everybody who's on the Facebook page, to invite 2 friends to Constella. And if you can invite those 2 friends also to Facebook, that's also awesome. It's a great way for us to collaborate. So we're asking you to invite 2 friends. That may mean that you're just asking your child's teacher to please drop the Constella link in the Google Classroom. It may mean that you're asking them to send a dojo message to every parent in the classroom to please join Constella, and here's why. So that we are able to then communicate with all families in a consistent way, and then the families can collaborate with one another.
Monique, let me just jump in for 1 second.
Yes, go ahead.
So our board has, I'm a 2nd grade parent, Monique's a 3rd grade parent, Jamie Longo's 2nd grade and 4th? 5th?
4th.
Yes, 4th.
Okay, 4th. And Asia is a 1st grade parent. So we have half of those grades covered at least, all of 2nd grade. Monique deals with both of the 3rd grade parents. So 4th grade, I think, is split too. So Jamie probably has communication. And then Jamie Ford, also 1st grade. So we have those grades covered as far as emailing the teachers to ask them to send out that information. We can also do this through Principal Hall and through Ms. McKenzie, and we will. But I think it's good to get the engagement that way, like from the parents directly. So if other parents in other grades that aren't represented can reach out to their teachers and ask them to share that and just let parents know about it, that'd be great, because it is a way that we really want to build that communication and that community.
Yes, absolutely. And that goes along with what we were talking about with classroom parents and virtual class volunteers. And yes, they've posted on Dojo before. I think an email has gone out also, but we're just, what I feel like and what the sense that I'm getting is it's much easier if people are getting it sort of a individual invitation, which feels like a lot sometimes, but more of a, hey, this is what's happening. Can you please?
That is hot.
Asia?
I also think that it's one of those things where getting the information over and over again in different avenues is really helpful. And so much of the information that we get from Dojo is kind of specific to your students or to their class. And I just feel like being able to get if the parents are able to drive the Constella recruitment, I just think it's an approach that we haven't tried yet. There are some classes that do have a percentage of their students there, but a lot of them that just aren't. And some of the feedback that we got last year when we initially rolled out with Constella is that a lot of parents are on Facebook. The Facebook page that you see me with I'm only using that for HSA stuff, basically. So being able to actually get a hold of people in a different way, that's specifically school oriented. I know we had a parent on the Facebook page who was like, hey, we're kind of struggling with stuff. And I said, hey, maybe it would be helpful if you went into the Constella to kind of start up to spark conversation. Apparently, yes. Apparently, if we can kind of like get the kindling burning, I think it'll be a really great community for us all to utilize.
Hey, sorry, this is Nareet. I like cannot stay silent because I'm like so amped up about this issue. I'll put my video on. So I'm the one who posted yesterday, and like I'm almost boiling over with my frustration about not being able to communicate with other families. Like I don't even think I can speak calmly about it because I have reached out multiple times. I said something at the like 2 weeks before school started about Constella and like trying to get the administration to push Constella if that's going to be the way that we talk to each other. I feel like the school is not supporting us in building a community, and I think we really need it. And we needed it like 2 weeks ago. And so I'm happy to recruit parents to join, but I can't get in touch with any parents. Like not any, but like I just feel like it's the echo chamber. Like the people who are on this call are probably the same people on the Facebook group, are probably the same people on Constella. And for kindergarten, it's 9 families, which is great, but there's 24 kids. Like, I guess I just, I don't feel comfortable with us being a small group talking to the same small group. I don't think, it's not why I joined this school. And I'm almost in tears. I don't understand why this is so hard. I don't think it should be this hard. And I feel like the school is standing in the way between me trying to get in touch with other families in my kids' school. I just don't get it.
I think that the district has some regulations about information sharing that they have to comply with. And so that's part of the reason why they can't just,
I get that, but I've asked about opting in, right? So we can't default share information. I totally understand that. But I talked to a principal at another district school. She said, and I did this when we were parents at Henry. Like we worked with a teacher. We said, here's a form, opt in. If you want to share your information, share your information. I asked Ms. Frida if she'd be willing to do it.
Don't blame the school. Part of this is our fault that we didn't get that out to Principal Hall or the teachers early enough. And
I mentioned this to them.
I know, but I think that because Constella is our thing, that it has to come from us. So, I mean, I think that it's I'm not going to make excuses, but it is more complicated. The getting people on board and joining these online groups has been harder than I anticipated.
I totally hear you. I mean, I think adoption is tough. But so then I was like, okay, well, let's do a Google form. And, I was like, I'll make the Google form for you. I don't want to put the work on the teacher. I'm happy to do it. It's not that hard. But she said she wasn't authorized to do it, that we couldn't do a Google form. So I was like, okay, so let's use Constella as the platform. But if we're going to do that, which I think does have a higher barrier, but that's fine. If that's going to be the platform, then it needs to be a concentrated push, and it can't just be from us at the HSA. It needs to be from the administration, because this is something that's important for the community. And it's not and the administration needs to support us in doing that.
They are. I think that we are owing them an email, drafting of an email that would be sent out to their email list. So
Okay.
that's something that we owe them, that we're working on. But got in the way because it's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'll try to calm down about it. I feel like I've been
No, I
banging.
know it is
for a while.
frustrating, and I think it's harder when you can't see people face to face and get to know people at drop off and pick up. Get to know people. Like last year, the kindergarten had donuts after they dropped their kids off for all the kindergarten parents. It would have been nice. Those things are all ways to make connections. So.
Right, well, and part of it too is this is just a really fucking hard experience, and I need to talk to other families that are going through the same thing, because some of it is there's some assignments that I'm like, is this for real? What is the expectation? And I feel I do have a few parents that I can talk to, but it goes back to what I was saying before. I feel like that seems not quite right to me. Right, to lean on the same few small families, when what I really want to do, the reason that my kids are in the school is so we can feel like we're part of a bigger community and step outside our own bubble. And I think that's part of this too, is it just feels yeah, it just
So I have a question.
I'll stand down now, because I think I've said what I wasn't to say.
No, because I get your frustration, and I hear it too. And in our particular class, Ms. Miller has pushed Constella over and over again since before the beginning of the year. And so what that has me thinking is, then what are the barriers that are keeping people from signing up for Constella? So is it just that they're not getting messages? That's possible, but I suspect that that's not true, or it's not the full story. So then what might be keeping people from accepting that invitation? what concerns might they have that are making them think that Constella is not right for them or their families, and then how do we address those concerns up front, so that people are clearer that this is not predominantly a fundraising grab, right? And lots of schools use Constella predominantly for fundraising. And, you know, if you did a quick search for it, you might be thinking, well, they want my money and I don't have any money and I don't want to be harassed for money, so I'm not going to do that. You know, they want classroom volunteers and I can't be a classroom volunteer because I'm too busy for that, and so I'm not going to sign up. Or I appreciate Monica asking in the chat, you know, is Constella free? If people are not aware that in fact Constella doesn't cost anything, then they might be thinking, you know, I can't, you know, sign up for a subscription service or something like that. So what can we do to identify what barriers are keeping people from accepting these invitations? I agree, getting the invitation out more is also helpful, but that can't be the only.
Yeah, I think the one other thing I'd add to that, as someone who does marketing for a living, is it's not just the barriers, but it's also like we really need to fundamentally communicate what the benefits are, like why someone would want to sign up.
Yes.
That's what
I think
I
part of
was
it
thinking
is,
that.
I know last year when we were at the back to school night, people were like, oh, I don't have time. They didn't want to join the HSA at all. So not even Constella on the board, but just join the HSA because they didn't have time. And so they did, and they thought that if they couldn't donate their time that they didn't want to be involved. So maybe we need to broaden, like make sure that we're talking about what the HSA is, that it's not just about donating time or money, that it's more than that. It's about being able to talk to the other parents in your class and stuff like that.
All right, so Shannon unmuted, go ahead and share, and then I'm gonna address Amanda, who posted something.
Hi, my name is Shannon. I have a second and fourth grader this year. This is my first HSA meeting, so it's nice to see everybody. Like I joined Constella and I joined the Facebook group. I don't log into Constella like often, but I think maybe sharing what's the difference between Constella and Class Dojo, because I feel pretty connected to what's happening in the school and in my kids' classrooms, and you know, they'll post community events and such. So if I'm getting all that information from Class Dojo, it's like what would be the benefit of adding Constella as another app to my phone?
That's a great thought. Also, because I think that's the kind of problem solving we want to make sure that we're doing sort of in this group, because it really is important that we figure out how to best build community at Houston. And so I think that my son went to Cook-Waseca, and before he came to Houston, there was no Constella. It was only Facebook group, but it was almost every parent was on the Facebook group because that was what they used most frequently. And I'm not opposed to pushing whichever one seems to be the best way to develop collaboration. But just trying to think of like the best ways to develop collaboration, and then to differentiate it from Class Dojo, which was actually the question or the thing that Amanda brought up in the chat. And Constella is different from Class Dojo in the sense that you are able to communicate amongst parents in a classroom as opposed to just receiving information from your child's teacher or teachers or from the school at large. Constella allows for collaboration and for communication between families in a classroom, which, you know, can be done in a variety of ways, but it just supports that sort of collaboration without people having to share all of their information, which was kind of the point when we started to look at it. But I appreciate, Shannon, I appreciate you for bringing that up, and also for bringing up the concerns, because that's really one of the landmarks of what we want to get done this year, is to really develop community at Houston. And it seems like what was becoming an easier feat as the school year sort of was progressing last year is now like now jumping over huge hoops, because we're now not having the time when we're running into each other at drop off and running into people at pickup and able to have these conversations. And so it's definitely a new and different challenge. And I will say that we are lucky that administration is they are giving lip service to the fact that building community is also important to them. What I do know also is that we is that we are competing with about 5 other priorities that administration has that we don't typically have, right? They're thinking about a lot of other things that we are not, that are not our top of mind. What's top of mind for us is community at Houston and developing parent community. For them, it's scheduling and call offs and all kinds of things that happen that put the things that are priority for us, we have to make sure that we make them priority for somebody else. And I agree, the app fatigue. That's also another reason why we are trying to think of what are the barriers. App fatigue is true, it's accurate. I mean, for me, even at work, I have app fatigue. We use Slack for some things and email for other things and Schoology for some things, and I'm not checking all those things, just not. It's hard to manage all of those apps. And so I think looking at how we can develop community in a stronger way, and if Constella is the way, or maybe we need to do something different, is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. I want to push this along to one more thing, and then we'll do our listening session, which is really for you guys to share with us. But there's something that is like super imperative. Can you go to the next slide? Leveling is an issue. And the reason it's an issue is that at Houston, we stand to lose 2 teachers. Kindergarten only has 27 students, 29 on roll. 3rd grade has 30 on roll. At the school district of Philadelphia, you have to have more than 30 students. That means that 31 is the magic number in order to make sure that you keep both teachers. As it stands, all of the kindergartners are currently in one classroom. That will not change if leveling happens, or we don't get more students. I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. I can explain leveling in a roundabout way and try to give you a quick understanding of what that looks like. But basically, they look at the number of students in a school and the number of teachers they have in a school, and they level them. And they say, okay, well, Houston has too many teachers for the number of students they have. Doesn't matter where these teachers fall, where the students fall, they've got too many. So it's typically the newest teachers are gone first. Sometimes that's different based on what teachers' certifications are and all that kind of stuff. But typically the newest teachers leave first. And right now it shows that we would be losing 2 teachers at Houston. The leveling day is Friday. That's tomorrow. That is the day that the district has said that based on attendance. So it's not just like, the number of students in a class, but also the number of students who actually shown up to school, and attendance virtually in this case is tomorrow. There are 2 ways that we can ensure or help to ensure that this doesn't happen. Well, 3. 1, there's a petition, the tiny URL halt leveling. If you have not signed it, please sign it. If you have friends who have not signed it, please have them sign it, share it with whomever you can share it with. It's shared in the Houston HSA Facebook group right now. We're asking that you share it. 2, we need 2 kindergartners and a 3rd grader. Honestly, if you have friends who did not enroll their kids in school, kindergartens especially, but like friends who are in the catchment or out of catchment, they don't have to be in catchment. If they are out of catchment, if they are in Lingle Box catchment, not that we want to take Lingle Box children, I'm just saying. But if you have friends who are either in or out of catchment, or friends who had just not enrolled their children in school, please encourage them to do so. While the leveling day is tomorrow and the kids should have had to have attended one day, this is the way the leveling rules were before. I feel like we can make a case, if we've got enough kids enrolled, we can make the case to not level teachers out of the building. As it stands, Ms. McGuire, who was typically the other kindergarten teacher, is teaching 6th grade. She does not want to be. She does not want to be teaching 6th grade. She was my son's 1st grade teacher. She was phenomenal. And I'm sad about every kindergartner that doesn't have her. Like, she's that good. And she's having to teach 6th because the teacher who would be leaving, one of the teachers that they would have to lose would be a 6th grade teacher. And so we want to try as much as we can to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, Emily, while we were in this meeting, Principal Hall was emailing about another way that we can advocate for this not to happen.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, if you know someone who is thinking about enrolling or would want to enroll, email Miss Mackenzie, whose email address was a couple slides earlier, and you'll get this afterwards, or message me and I can give you her email address. She's the one who would be able to help enroll your child or your friend's kid or whoever. Just need some kids in the classes. So the other thing is, we have heard in the past of schools, of parents being able to advocate against leveling by calling or emailing or petitioning the district. I think that sometimes it's successful and sometimes it's not, but I don't think it could hurt at this point. This is a really different scenario because leveling used to not happen until like October or at least the end of September, correct? Like this is extremely fast. It seems crazy to even make this decision when, number one, this was another one of those early start years where we started before Labor Day. So people may not have even, if you weren't paying attention, you may not have known that we were going to start before Labor Day. And there's always historically been a lot of people that register the first day of school. And I think that just happens like the first few weeks of school, there's people who register. So they're doing that and they're basing it on like this week's attendance and registration numbers. So I think that we have a case here to argue against the leveling for a variety of reasons. And one of them is that 27 to 29 kids in one Zoom for kindergarten is bananas. It's too much for the teacher. It's too much for the kids. It's too much for the parents. And so I think I was trying and I looked all day and I contacted people who I know who do a lot of advocating within the district. No one had a specific number to call. So I think you can just call the general number and maybe ask who to talk to about leveling. I think any amount of parent engagement, calling, emailing, we can send around Principal Height's. Superintendent Height has an email address. We should probably actually share all the school board members' email addresses too. We can do that tonight and just flood them with as many parents as we can. It doesn't matter if your kid, don't think, okay, my kid's not in kindergarten or third grade, this doesn't impact them, because it might.
It's all the way up.
Because of the way they have to switch things around, your kid might be impacted too. But also, we're a community, right? We have to be community minded, and this isn't good for our community at all. We have wonderful teachers, and we don't want to lose any of them. Like our teachers are amazing. I just don't want to lose a single one. So if we could just, I know it can be really awkward and intimidating to make some of these phone calls or send an email. Just feel all your rage about the pandemic. And the virtual learning, and channel it in an effective and diplomatic way and reach out, because I really do think that parents within the district do have power if we unite together and advocate for some change. So yeah.
So a couple of questions. These are great questions. Number one, no, we do not lose them just for this year. We lose them permanently. I was a teacher in the school district. I taught at middle years alternative school, like Maya. It's a really good school in West Philly. That was the school that I had. I had 15 fifth graders. It was great. But the other teacher also had 15 fifth graders. And because we did not have 31, I got leveled out of my building and went to another school and ended up back at the school that I started. So yes, if we lose that teacher, we lose them permanently. And I will send, yes, all this will be sent via Facebook and email, all this information. The other thing, so there's lots of advocacy happening around the school district to not have leveling happen and not have leveling happen right now. Having leveling happen while children are not physically in the building is not wise. To level teachers out, knowing that we will have children who will show up in November or whenever school may open in person. We will have families, and then we won't have enough teachers for the families that will be there. And then you will have an overcrowded classroom. The thing that's interesting about the district is while they say that they level in order to alleviate overcrowded classrooms. That's not really typically how it works. You will typically have overcrowded classrooms. If we had 35 teachers or 35 students in kindergarten, we probably wouldn't get another teacher. But if we have less than 30, we will lose one. And that's typically how the district works when it comes to that. And so it's really important that we advocate as much as possible. So there's a few ways that we can do that. Number one is the petition. Number two, if you know families or can find families or you have friends and you want to encourage them to enroll, that's helpful. And then number three is to send emails to Dr. Height, send emails to the board members. Dr. Height and the board members are honestly probably your best bet. The more you annoy them, the better. The last thing is when we talked about sending letters for commentary or signing up to speak at the board meeting, that is the same night as back to school night. If you are willing to miss back to school night to participate in the board meeting, please do that. If you are willing to send a letter of send a testimony via email for the board meeting, please do that. While leveling is supposed to be based on the numbers that show up tomorrow, leveling doesn't actually occur until the first week of October. So while they say it's based on whatever attendance is by tomorrow, there's all kinds of time to change those things and all kinds of time to make different decisions. Like if someone were to say to you, oh, we can't do anything about leveling, and they said it to you next week, that's not true. They can. And so the leveling moves don't happen until the first week of October. So I think October the 5th is supposed to be the date. We are not the only ones that are like advocating again, like the CASA, which is the principals and administrators union, the PFT, along with families and communities in other neighborhoods, not just ours, are advocating, but we really need to push this because this will be very detrimental because, for example, the third grade class was a smaller class. They were split, I think they were 17 and 17 in second grade. They were 17 and 17 in first grade. But last year we had, what, 30 kindergartners in each room? Something like that, close to that, like 20 something per room. We know that our kinder numbers typically end up bumping up significantly. And to even level out of the building based on kinder numbers is just inappropriate. And so we will find ourselves in a situation where now we have to find a brand new teacher because we would lose those teachers permanently. Those teachers don't get to necessarily come back when we lose them. And so this is super important. So as much advocacy as you can, please do it as it relates to leveling because this is a big deal that will impact us significantly. There's something to be said about, my child's in third grade. It is lovely that he has 18 classmates. And to have, larger class sizes, that's not what we want. We don't want to be in a scenario where we have to deal with that consistently. Asia?
So my son, who's in first grade now, was in Miss Rita's class last year for kindergarten. And I think there were like 28 kids. And that was intense. And I thought she was great with them, but I cannot imagine trying to do what she did then in a very large room on a computer screen with parents and children who can't read, who've never used computer mouses before. The tech is actually significantly better. So if you're opening things that don't have buttons to actually like activate the app or to make it editable, that is not where we were in the spring if you're a kindergarten parent. So there's definitely a lot of issues there that have been smoothed out, but I can only imagine what it's like being in those spaces right now. To kind of pull that together, I also just wanted to thank Narit for sharing passionately what your experience is right now. And to also say that coupled with the leveling conversation is just another example of why Constella is important, because it's a venue for the HSA to be able to communicate these concerns that you're not necessarily going to get from the school or from the district, and not because of malice of any sort, but because we have great leadership on the HSA. Monique knows a lot about how the district operates, what other options are out there, because she's currently not working for the school district, and she can kind of help bridge those pieces together for us to help us make more informed decisions and to really organize some advocacy for our school community. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's thank you. That's super important. It's just, this is it's an ongoing argument, and it's an ongoing argument that puts money ahead of children. That is problematic for me, just personally, my own set of values. Putting money in ahead of what's best for kids is problematic. Many of the issues that we're running into, even thinking about hybrid learning, we would not have those same issues if we had smaller class sizes to begin with.
And let's not let them tell us that this is a finance issue, because the district has been funding multi-million-dollar contracts for.
Oh yeah, they can afford.
So let's not say that like 50 teachers being kept where they are is going to bankrupt the school. I just don't think. I don't think that's an excuse we can accept from them. Sorry.
No, and there are also teachers who got put into buildings that are called supplemental teachers. These are teachers who do not have a class. Those teachers, you could move them around if that made sense. You know, you have teachers. They don't have a class. They don't have any of that. So they're called supplemental teachers, who were sort of like overflow teachers. But to disrupt classes that are already trying to build community is a problem. Yes, Dr. Height is height@philasd.org. We're going to post we have a picture, like a graphic, with everybody, with all the school board members and their email addresses and contacts, so that you all can do that. Talking points to include regarding how distance learning presents a different scenario for leveling that we could include in our outreach emails. I think talking points that I think of are management of, especially if you have a younger grade child, the ability to do small group instruction in an effective way is a challenge when you have 29 kids, but 29 kids versus, 17. To be 100% honest, as an educator, 29 kids is hard, don't matter how you do it. When I taught in Philly, and the reason I know that they don't level teachers into buildings is because I had 35 fifth graders, and the district would send more kids to my building, and they would put them in our classrooms. Some of my colleagues had 37 fifth graders in their classrooms. We had 6 teachers. I was in the lower Northeast. They don't add teachers. They don't give them to you, trust me. They'll take them, but they will not add them back. And so it's hard no matter how you do it. It's just more challenging to do when you are trying to learn how to do learning, how to teach virtually and manage 29 children. It's a lot. So I think, advocating for that is super important. And I really appreciate all of you guys' engagement in that, because it is really something that's important to our community.
I would just point out briefly, this is Jamie, sorry, that the petition itself has a lengthy preface where it details all the reasons why leveling is a bad idea, and they devote quite a bit of time to explaining why it's a particularly bad idea right now. And you could definitely crib some language from that, I think, if you're looking for talking points.
Yes. All right. So now that we've had that SOS call, which was super important, we'll go on to the next slide. So this is our time to really listen to you. Our job here at the HSA as an exec board is really, we work for you, and we want to advocate for the things you want and need as families. And so we're really here to kind of listen to you, give answers to the things that we do have answers for. We'll try to get them for you. If there's things that you want, questions you have, concerns you have, I'll actually lead off with something that showed up for me, and then you guys are really welcome to share. I'm not sure who else has computers on Wednesday. However, I had computers on Wednesday, and the Miss Robinson was not there. She had called out, but we didn't know, which is an interesting scenario, which if children were in school, it'd be a whole different thing. You know, she wasn't there, then the teacher would keep them, that sort of thing. But when you're virtual, that communication sort of got lost in the sauce. I communicated with Miss McKenzie and she said that it will be a dojo message if you're, for example, specials teacher or someone is out. But making sure that that is a communicated system so that families understand is something that's super important, and that has happened for us. But we are here to listen, give answers if we can, and take it back what we need to in order to make sure that we are doing what we need to do. And feel free to say that, you know what, you guys, I need you guys to do this and this and this as an HSA for us, because that's our job. We work to support families. So unmute yourself. You don't need anybody to unmute you. Unmute yourself and share if you have anything that you want to share, questions you have, whatever the case may be.
I would really like to advocate for more unstructured like engagement amongst the students, like creating spaces for them to interact with one another, because they can't do, like, they're excited to see each other. I know my second grader, he's always excited to log on and see his classmates, but like that's not the time for them to be able to just talk about regular things, second grade things. So that's definitely been something important for me, is just to have spaces where, whether that be like maybe a lunch Zoom link where kids can casually, get together, or just something for them.
Awesome idea. Ooh, I love that. Because we have like the Mr. Days of the world and all that kind of stuff. They pop in and out of classes. So that's definitely an idea. I love it. So maybe once a week have a lunch Zoom, like that's
Right.
Yeah, maybe on Fridays, because it's really only a half day of classes that are live. It might be a nice treat at the end of the week.
Yeah. What happens on Fridays right now is teachers have PD training time, but that doesn't mean that we still have some of the same support staff. And if they're not in PD, that's definitely an option. We will float that. Great idea.
I also think once we create a classroom parent, that's something that maybe a couple classroom parents could do and coordinate and their own Zoom, so that the parents don't have one more thing on their plate to organize. Just a thought. I don't know. I guess it'd have to be different, but we could just have the teacher send out the Zoom link. And if parents want to join, they can do that. Just a thought.
I like that. Classroom parent or, okay. Any other thoughts or things? That was super imperative. Last year, CJ had Miss McGuffin and she did it on Wednesdays at the end of the year. So it was like kind of show and tell, hang out, play Roblox with each other while you guys are on the same Zoom. And he looked forward to that way more than he looked forward to class. He was like, I cannot miss my Wednesday meeting. Any other thoughts or things that have come up? I know we're a few days into online learning and the logistics can be a little hairy, especially if you got somebody third and up because they have two teachers.
I saw something on a Facebook group at the end of the summer about getting some live playground meetups together, and I got lost and never followed up. I was wondering if any of those ever happen, and obviously there's sensitivity with live meetup, but outside, is that something that, again, this gets back into contact info and how to contact other parents to create those informal meetups. Personally, I'm not that interested in more computer time, but I would love a playground meetup on a nice Friday afternoon. And I don't even know how to reach out to other families. Obviously, it's something that the schools can't sponsor.
Yeah, the other thing that's important is we can't use the school playground. The district has basically not allowed for that, because we've asked Principal Hall multiple times and he's been told no by the district. He's been willing to unlock it, but they've told him he's not allowed.
So it was open through June, and then they shut it down, and it's in 11 years we've lived next to it. It's never been shut down. Do you know why that happened?
COVID concerns. That's the line that he has gotten, and he's asked on multiple occasions, because Emily has definitely asked him every time we meet with him over the summer, can we unlock the gate? And he's like, he said I can.
My kids still ask every day.
I have a question. This is Christine Reckamp. I'm Zeke's mom. He's a kindergartner, but I noticed that Henry's playground is open. So this is like the district saying that Houston's cannot be open. Like, that's not a district-wide policy, because Henry's is wide open. I was there last week.
That's a great point.
Okay, that's good, because then we can find out. And Jinx is open too.
Jenks is open as well.
And in
Now,
addition, the school doesn't even support the playground.
right, it's not the school's playground. Not
Yeah.
the school didn't build it, so the school district doesn't. Right. So that's a great, thanks for that, because then that means that the people who we need to talk to, we know who we need to talk to. Because if they're telling Hall that he can't open it, it could be something to do with the fact that the district doesn't own the playground. I don't know. Could be all kinds of like dumb, sort of red tapey, politically type stuff, but that's good to know.
Maybe our playground can be closed off and those other playgrounds can't.
Yeah, and Jenks is not owned by the school district either. So
Is it
set up?
So I'm just asking for more information.
All the way around, but
There's no way to shut Jenks. There's no
there's no way to shut Jinx down or Henry. So I think that, but we have those gates.
You could shut Jenks down very easily. I mean, SCH just put orange, like thousands of yards of orange net around their whole campus. It probably cost them $100. So it could be shut. If the school district wanted to shut them down, they could have. But it's only Houston. It's a great point that's being shut.
Yeah, so we'll Houston has the gates, which makes it easy to lock the playground up, whereas those schools don't have those same barriers. But that's good. So then yeah, because that's usually there's a it's the same people who are over top of the people who clean the buildings. Those are the same people that we would need to talk to. So
We don't have Monique to ask this time.
Listen, I have no problem.
I've used some of my questions on that.
I like fussing at 440 now that I don't work there anymore. It's great fun for me to call down there and ask.
Monique, I also think it would be really powerful if you bring up the fact that Jenks is open and Henry is open. That tends to be a little bit of a sensitive.
Yeah, it gets super sensitive in the Northwest school areas. And when these schools get to do this and then they don't, and Houston doesn't, because that happens a lot more frequently than it should, actually. There's stuff that Henry gets or stuff that Jinx does or gets that Houston seems not to get the same. Yeah, because, we need parents that we need to ask the right people the right questions, because the reality is we need to ask the person who's telling Hall no, because the person who told him no is the person that we actually need to speak to. And so, like I said, those are things that are important to us as families that don't hit the high priority list for schools, that we have to make sure that as families and as an HSA, we advocate for, because in the millions of things that a school or school administration has to do in a day, making sure the playground is open doesn't hit like top of the list, right? But for us, it's top of the list. And so we need to make sure that we are advocating where we need to advocate to get done what we need to get done. That's good.
Well,
Playground meetups in the playground. Any other thoughts?
I had a suggestion about meetups. I had been thinking of maybe doing something in the woods, and I originally was looking at Aubrey Arboretum, but I don't know if there was quite enough interest to actually like reserve that. But I also emailed someone at Friends of Gresham Trail if there would be a way to like kind of make spaces in the woods there for outdoor classrooms, or like because if you walk in that trail right near the school, there's not a lot of places to stop. And they actually seemed like they were interested in doing something like that. But again, I wouldn't want it to be just only the kids that I knew already, because we're in kindergarten and we don't know everyone. But maybe that would be something the HSA could be involved in, and could also help when we do go in person to have more outdoor
Yes, awesome. I know we had talked about before school closed and when they were talking about a hybrid open, about ensuring that, and I know this is still on his radar, I don't know what it's going to look like now that it'll probably be winter by the time we go back into buildings, if at all. Making sure that we're using the outdoor spaces as much as possible. So we've got 2 outdoor classrooms essentially. And there was talk of trying to create another outdoor classroom sort of by where the library is. And then trying to use as much of that outdoor space so that classes can be outside as much as possible, just to sort of, you know, get into nature. And so I think that's a great thing for us to advocate for, kind of even in the interim while we're not in the building, but making sure that we're advocating for the outdoor space. Sure. Any other thoughts, things that are coming up, any like school, like, I don't understand why this works this way, or how can we help this be better? I know that just giving
I had a question. This is Marie again. Just an observation that, like, you know, my kids tend to be most alert in the morning, and then the wheels start to fall off the bus, or more likely to fall off the bus in the afternoon. And I just kind of had this moment where I was like, well, because we're always doing, and this is, at least I know for our kindergartners and our second grader, that English is in the morning and math is in the afternoon. If there's any way, and I talked to someone at Henry and I know they have a similar thing. So I don't know how big an ask this is, but if there's a way to swap English and math so that math can get some of that alert brain time in the morning, I think it also might be nice. I don't know if more variety, like if switching it up is more harder or easier, but mostly I just was thinking like they're just not there mentally in the afternoon.
I literally said the same thing today.
So
math, trying to do the math worksheet, like,
I concur.
It didn't work. I was like, I think I'm just going to start doing the math worksheet during the ELA time.
Yeah, exactly.
That is an easier ask K-2 than it is 3-8. So 3-8, because they have different teachers, flip schedule is pretty challenging. But I think for kids K-2, I think that's possible. I think the best person to probably message that to is Miss McKenzie. Because she sort of like manages the schedule, but since kids are in the same class, they have the same teacher all day, that sort of maneuvering can be done. Right. I did when I was in the classroom, it can be done. K-2, 3-8, I can't say that would kind of be really like a real upset to the apple cart to try and figure out how to remaneuver that. But I think to do K-2, I don't think that's a challenging ask. So that's something I think, yes, can be done. I think that's a Miss McKenzie thing. I don't mind to bring that to her and just say that that's something that families have wanted. Because, yeah, I think that's true for everywhere. At least our kids are still logging on in the afternoon. There are schools where kids have logged on in the morning, and that's it. The other thing that I want to bring up on that note is that the time that we have for asynchronous learning, I did not know this was a luxury. Apparently it is. There are schools that have kids who are on Zoom except at lunch. Like even when they have independent time, their independent time is still on screen. If that is happening in your classroom specifically, please reach out. That's problematic for a number of reasons. There are reasons why schools do it. I know why the schools that are doing that are doing it, but it's still it's not best practice. So we don't know what's happening in everybody's individual classrooms with individual teachers, but if things like that are coming up where kids are not getting time off screen, please sort of like note that, please let us know so that we can advocate for ensuring that they're holding to the schedule.
We've had a couple of days where the teacher has offered for people to stay on screen if they want help working through whatever the activity is, but it's never been required. And that does feel different to me to give the student the opportunity to get some more like directive help if they're stuck.
Yeah. And also super helpful for when your first grader has no idea what their assignment is, even though they just talked about it. So exactly. I usually pop in and check in to find out what the assignment is.
I regret to inform you that the fourth grader has not been more helpful in that capacity.
So this is Christine Reckamp again. I'm not going to turn on my camera because I'm eating and I don't want to subject you to that. But kind of related schedule adjustments and asynchronous time. It might also be very helpful if the folks who make the schedules can consider stacking asynchronous time directly behind lunch, sometimes at least, so that there can be a longer break. Like in our family, what often happens is that one parent takes the morning shift while the other parent works, and then we swap. My husband works at home right now. I have to go to an office. So on days when I'm traveling home, like that 45-minute time period is not enough for me to drive from my office to my house, eat something, make sure my son has eaten something, and then get us both in front of the computer. And it would provide a little more breathing room if I knew that he had asynchronous time, that, you know, maybe he's working on homework, maybe he's just being a flapdoodle for an extra few minutes, but it would give a little more breathing room.
Christine, what grade?
Kindergarten.
Okay, because it is stacked like that in third grade. That's the way that the async time is. But I think it's possible. Like I said, K-2 schedule maneuvering is a different beast than 3 to 8. So I think that stacking asynchronous time around lunch, K-2, and then flipping math in the morning, those are K-2. Those are both things that we can bring up to Miss McKenzie as the person that we would speak to about that, to make sure that we can advocate for that if at all possible. Because I'll be honest with you, that time, because this async time is stacked around lunch, makes it really helpful because it gives him a significant break in the day. That my little one, if you have ever met him, he needs all the movement time he can get. He needs to be able to run around. He's a moving kid.
So this is like a long-term parking lot item or a next year item, but I know there are a certain amount of specials that the school can choose, and it's the reason that we don't have art at Houston is because we chose our 5 specials and we got music back. In my opinion, we don't need digital literacy after this year. And as we're talking to school administration for next year, think about getting art back. I mean, maybe that I would love to hear other people's opinions about that. But this year I don't want any more digital literacy. I'd much rather have an art class, and I know that's not feasible right now. But not having art at Houston is, you know, it's a shortcoming, and it would be a huge asset to the community. But I'd love to hear other folks' opinion on that.
Oh, and by the way, Monique, I think I'm fairly certain Christine and any other kindergarten parents might be able to reaffirm this. I know the teacher was late to today's session. I believe she was late last week too, and had difficulty, like this irony of difficulty navigating Zoom, which I do want to show a little bit of compassion, but I think that was
it's okay. Marie, I was right there with you. I understand completely. Trust me.
One of the things that I was hoping
thought
that teachers might be having an opportunity to do practice Zoom sessions, like maybe, you know, during their professional development time, like have just the teachers and, you know, oh, today, Linda, it's your turn to teach us a Zoom lesson. And then teacher Linda teaches her Zoom lesson. And then the other teachers can be like, okay, that was really, this didn't work. And did you know this about Zoom? And it can kind of come from peers in a no pressure setting where there's not 27 kindergartners, you know, waiting.
So that one happened during PD already. It's problematic for a number of reasons why there are teachers who seem to not know how to navigate. There are nuances to Zoom, like breakout rooms and things like that, that are challenging to navigate. There are some basics that probably should not be as challenging as it seems to be for some folks. I'm trying to talk as politically correctly around this as humanly possible. But yes, so Christine, to your point, yes, that's really important. And I think that has happened. I think that at times when things are not happening as they should, it is important to give grace to folks because this is new and different. And it's also important to ensure that we're getting the best education for our children and making the best use of our time and our children's time. We have a special lens into classrooms that we probably never would have seen before otherwise. So we see things a lot differently. I will say for you as parents, it is definitely interesting for me as an educator, because I've been doing this a long time, and this is kind of what I do. Like, I'm a teacher coach in my typical life, just for another network. There's lots of stuff that's challenging to me. So there's stuff that I have grace for, and there's stuff that I'm less gracious about, because some stuff shouldn't be. And so I think we can advocate for, I love the idea of swapping to try and get art or a different special other than digital literacy, not because computers are not important, but we're going to be pretty adept at all things digital and online learning and literacy. By the time we're done, our children will have navigated multiple platforms and know how to do a lot of those things. And so we want to make sure that our children are getting the very best that they can get. So I think that that's important. And yeah, I will probably be having having a educator to administrator conversation that's slightly different than a parent to administrator conversation soon. It's on deck for me.
Do you know if there are any district-led or any sort of, I don't know, like tutorials about the Zoom features? Because I noticed just in having multiple kids that are virtually learning on different devices, all devices aren't created equal, and all the options that they have aren't equal. Like, especially the school issued or the district issued Chromebooks don't have a lot of features that regular laptops would, yes. Like virtual backgrounds, which is like a big thing for me. Like not having that option, I know that can be intimidating for parents. It can make some of them feel uncomfortable having the whole class basically peer into their home. So not having that as an option, I think Google Classroom, like Google Hangout, does have that as an option, but if you have a district computer, then that's not an option. And so many teachers, like, they're really pressing, like having the cameras on, like making sure that's like their way of measuring engagement and whether, you know, you're with them, but that can create just a whole different type of anxiety for the students or the parents.
Oh, Shannon.
If I could just
Go ahead, Asia.
If I could just, well, one, I perpetually have company when I'm in meetings. My 4-year-old just came in for the 3rd time during this meeting. That is definitely, I think, a concern. Just a very general, oh, I didn't dust, versus, you know, some maybe deeper thoughts of like general conspiracy about surveillance happening in people's homes. There have been things happening in the news about horrible things happening in the background of children being present in class. So we talked a little bit about the requirements, trying to figure out which teachers might be phrasing it as being a requirement to have cameras on the whole time during lessons, just because that's not always possible for people, for children. And also not having the, like, we have a district issued Chromebook. We actually had a different one that kept jumping off of the Wi-Fi every single time you close the browser, which trying to get a 6-year-old to re-enter the Wi-Fi passcode every 25 minutes is just obnoxious. So I think that's definitely a good question, and definitely a concern that we're trying to figure out how to navigate that with administration.
That's in addition to the other thing, like having that lens. If you have teachers that are phrasing, I already know of one, that the cameras are required to be on rather than an urging. which is like, that's the difference is, it's really important that you have the camera on so that we can engage with you and I know you're with me and that sort of thing. That has to be the ask, right? But when you're requiring for a grade to have cameras on, etc., that's problematic. If that's happening, please shoot us an email and let us know who and advocate that. It's, trust me, it's a conversation we've already had. And Shannon, I think the issue in terms of virtual background and not being able to have a virtual background is another like layer to that. And to answer your question or go back to your question about what like sort of a Zoom tutorial, I'm not sure if you're thinking about from like a student/parent perspective or something for teachers, which I know exists, but I think one for like how can we use Zoom to its optimal capacity from a student-parent lens would be something that we can think through, because you're right, it doesn't work the same on all devices and everybody's using different things. So I think, yes, looking at that is something, something super important. So yes, I think we can look at what we can do to create some sort of like mini tutorial or something like that. Yes, art versus digital, start to understand digital literacy curriculum and competencies for each grade. Who's on JavaScript or 18. Yes, Rhett, all of those things are super important. And I agree with you 100% on that part. To know what the scope and sequence is, that's something I actually am digging into. What I've heard is that that does not exist for digital literacy. I don't believe that that can be completely true, but I'm going to dig into finding more out about it, because it is challenging for me in a lot of ways. What schools often have done is looked at digital literacy as a place to do blended learning, which is kind of what they're doing now. So the kids will get on iReady or they'll get on Lexia during digital literacy time. It's just a time to have extra computer time where everybody can be online at one time. That's not really what digital literacy was meant to be, but that's sometimes what it ends up being. And so we want to make sure that we are giving kids the best. Yeah, coding and all of that. Right. If they were doing coding and all those things, some of that work happens actually in Miss Bush's STEM class. Actually, she does some of the coding and electrical work and things like that. So great question. I think even for now, we can advocate for those things to be what is talked about in digital literacy, to kind of push the envelope. It's not a time to do blended learning. It's not a time to get on iReady or Lexia. It is a time to learn true digital literacy. So I think we can push for that, for sure.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Last year was such a very long time ago. I can't remember what all specials we had last year. Do you know which one they would swap out with music?
We had art before. It was a different art teacher.
Last year in 20?
Not last year. Wait, last year we had.
So 2 years ago, it was art, and then the art teacher left and we got music. And this year we kept music.
Yes.
It was STEM for half the year and then music for the other half.
STEM, music, GEM, and digital literacy. Those were the 4 we had last year. Those are the 4 we have again this year.
Okay, I forgot. I think we had music twice a week last year. That's what it was. Okay.
Yeah. And so we only have 4 specials. Somehow they've managed to maneuver the schedule that way.
Just to beat the drum on parental engagement or community engagement. On a couple slides ago on that, there was something about a family directory. And then I remember back to my years in school, and we had a phone book. Is that envisioned, or what was a family directory bullet point on that slide? I'm curious.
That was just that point about trying to create a family directory or working to create that.
Emily, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we've talked about. I don't know how it would work because parents, again, it would have to be parents opting in to share that information. So it's just something that we've discussed. I would love to do it. I just think there are some potential issues with it.
I think the conversation we had about barriers is super important, and I think that's really that is the conversation that actually needs to happen, because we have a variety of avenues. It's about what is the barrier for families and engaging with them. I think the sort of app fatigue is one. I think the idea of not knowing Constella or any other form, not knowing what it is and what it does different than like Dojo is another, but trying to make it as easy as possible for families to connect and communicate is super important. And so, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, I don't know if it was said before, but the reasoning behind Constella was that we assume there's parents who are not on Facebook and who choose not to be on Facebook, and we want to be able to have a platform that they can use so that we can share information. I mean, also the parent to parent or caregiver to caregiver conversation is huge, that ability to do that. But also there are people who aren't on Facebook. And I do think like we only started using Constella like maybe in October or November last year. So it is relatively new. I do think there's like a stronghold where, hold on, George. Sorry, I've got hungry kids here. So I think that like, I think it's possible. I think that it's proving to be a little more difficult. And I think Nurit's right. We need to really make sure that we're getting the teachers involved in sending this information out, and then making sure that we're reaching people as we meet them.
Right, as we see them and engage with them.
People are definitely adding, like people are joining. But I think it could be better. So we just have to try to get the word out a little bit better.
Yep, so I think that's also a thing. Is there any other thoughts or things coming up? I know it's 6:25, so it's already a little bit long.
Claire, I have one more question. Kind of. There was a pickup for materials, and then there's going to be another one. And it seems like the window was really small last time, and I can easily go get it, but I think some kids in our class missed that 3 or 4 hour in the middle of a workday time. And because I don't know if there's a way for maybe the HSA or parents to communicate before the next one next week and say, hey, if you can't get it, here's another person who could grab it for you or something like that. Just another way to, or I don't even know if that's allowed if you can do that, but
no, I think that's fine. They don't mind. Because I think we've talked about like having other parents. So I think, yeah, we can send a message out on Constella and through the Facebook group that if you are a parent who can't get to the pickup time.
Maybe it could also be another way that people would know about Constella, like if their teacher said, message someone on Constella and see if someone else could, because I definitely could for a kindergarten kid pretty easily.
So here's another issue of a lot of the parents that we need to get to, we just don't have the access to, the people who could really use having someone picking up supplies for their kids.
That's why I was thinking maybe that if we ask the teachers or the administrator to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, asking the teacher to send a Dojo message is probably a really good way to ask them to, you know what I mean? Just reaching out and saying, hey, I'm willing to pick up. Can you find out if there's any parents who need,
Can we use back to school night as a means of like signing people up for, proxies or, alternative pickup options?
It's a great thought. That's a great thought. And I think, back to school night is also going to be super helpful for those of you who are like parents in classrooms who know, like, who are going to be able to participate in back to school night. You may see parents who you don't typically see. I know when they had the meetings the Friday before school started or something like that, I got to see on Zoom parents who I typically would not have seen and interacted with, asking them even in that moment to be like, hey, if you're not on Constella and you're not on the Facebook group and you're not like connected to HSA, please connect. It's free. It's not anything that costs you anything or anytime. Just we want to be able to communicate with you and you be able to communicate with us.
Maybe another idea too for supplies is we could quick order one of the supply cabinets we were going to get anyway and try to get it up so that if there's parents who need to pick up those supplies who can't get there, we can put it in that. I don't know if logistically we'd be able to do that, but we can try. We can see if there's any at like the local hardware stores that we can just go grab this weekend. Happy to do that.
That's another option because yeah, one of the issues is there's not anybody in the building every day except for the building engineer. So even the principal isn't necessarily going to be in the building every day. And so it's hard to like reschedule pickups. I know Mr. Reason for third grade sort of was like, you can meet me wherever on this day to pick up like other supplies. He's very good about that kind of stuff. But it is a challenge, especially to get things and trying to have it open on late nights, which is another issue because the union doesn't require teachers to be working outside of their regular workday. So they can only work one evening out of the year or two, something like that. So all those things become additional layers that are challenges. And we want to make sure that we alleviate that as much as possible. Any other things that came up? I mean, I'm happy to stay on as long as, however, my child is at his dad's, so I'm a free mommy for the most part this evening, but any other thoughts or concerns or things that are coming up for you guys? School stuff, class stuff?
Yeah, so this is Lauren. My daughter is in first grade in Miss Galantic's class, so she's been great. Things have been going a little bit better than what I expected from my child perspective, but it still feels like too much screen time. I worry from the sense of I don't want her to miss out, but at the same time, I'm working from home full time. So she still needs a lot of help in navigating. We're trying to work with her and show her, what to do on her own, but she can't really be left by herself for long periods of time. Even though we're all in the same house, if I have meetings and things like that, I have to be able to focus on my work stuff. So I'm like running back and forth, we're trying to, do the best we can with a difficult situation for everyone. I guess my point to that is, I don't know if it's teacher to teacher or school-wide, that there's, even if it's not written into the schedule, there's some flexibility hidden behind that. So if for some reason she needed to miss part of a Zoom because we just couldn't be there to help her, because sometimes she'll wander off too. So we have to be there to like redirect, right? So,
yes.
So I just, your schedule isn't going to tell you all of that. And it's, I haven't had the opportunity to have like a one-on-one with a teacher yet. I just don't know from a school mandate perspective, is it that they have to, they have to be there? And if they're not, they're going to get, marked absent for this particular session, or how all of that's going to work. But my schedule has been pretty okay for the first couple of weeks, but it's going to get more hectic as time moves on. And I'm sure for others as well. I'm just wondering if there's any additional flexibility, I guess, is the main point.
Yeah.
So something that we've done, and I will also attest to the fact that we've had some really rough days. I kind of laughed earlier, I think, when Narit said that the kids kind of fall apart in the afternoon. My kid has only had meltdowns in the morning during the 9:15 time slot. And I'm like, but you got to get it together before 10 o'clock, you're back on the screen. But it's definitely a transitional time for me to try to figure out my schedule. But it takes time for us to even figure out, like, when does he need the help? But sometimes it's even during the class and he's afraid to raise his hand and ask the teacher a particular question about something. So there's some of that, but the way that Dr. Dender has organized things, and I don't know if this is kind of uniform and if the other first grade teacher is doing something similar, is that there are assignments that are due at the end of the day, but she's been coming up with this kind of a weekly schedule of all of the assignments. It's similar to the front page of what Miss Rita had in the packets last year, and it just lists everything that's going to be due for the week. And that has helped us when we have to like circle back around in the evening. Just to make sure that everything is taken care of. And also sometimes, you know, the synchronous time comes back before he's actually finished his async work, and, you know, we just push it to the evening. So I totally understand trying to find that balance when it's like he's wandering off and now he's like looking at Beyblades with his brother, and it's definitely a challenge, but if there's any flexibility, it would be good to hear back from teachers about that.
I think one, letting the teacher know what the needs of your particular child are is super important, because they don't really, you know, they're flying to the middle, right? This is what we think, this is what they told us, this is what we're trying to do, but they don't have the relationships with your students. Like, so for example, if CJ had Miss McGuire again this year, she would already know what the deal is. So it's really easy. Or Miss McGuffin, because she already knows how it is, and so she knows him. And so they're not having to build a relationship and figure kids out at the same time. So it's really important as parents to just advocate for your kid and say, hey, listen, this is a lot, and here's what I have going on this day, or whatever the case may be, but just making sure that you, like on Dojo or however you communicate with your child's teacher best, to let them know, because I think there's flexibility in the real life school day. Like in the real life school day, kids are not sitting for 45 minutes straight learning. It doesn't happen like that during a learning block. It just doesn't. So because there's flexibility in that type of day, there's also flexibility in a virtual day. And I think it's just trying to figure out what's the best fit for the kids that you have. And so making sure that you are letting the teacher know, listen, they might walk away. And if they walk away from a Zoom, they walk away from a Zoom, or they zone out in class, or they start spinning. This is my own life, spinning in their rolly chair around and around and around in a circle while the teacher's reading a story, and then they don't know what's happening in the story. But like all these things happen. They're kids, and this is what happens with kids. So in ensuring that you are just communicating with the teacher as much as possible, I think that's number one, Lauren, I would do. Asia, don't tell tales. Of course you encounter that. Somebody has to encounter like building a pallet on the floor and laying down and doing math class, because that's what my son decided to do the other day. And all that's okay, because it's like real life stuff. And understanding like the kids you have like in front of you as a teacher, that's what you have to do. And so as a parent, just making sure that you're giving the teacher like, hey, listen, today, I can't do it. I can't be with them. So if they walk away from the Zoom class, they're just gonna walk away because I have a meeting, and we'll get the work finished later. Can you give us the work, you know what I mean, whatever. Can you give it to us ahead? For CJ, I asked his teacher, can I get a hard copy of the book? Because listening to somebody read it aloud on a computer is not, that doesn't do it for him at all. He's not gonna understand it. So, you know, and teachers have been very gracious when it comes to stuff like that. So just, I think there is flexibility in the sense of what things will look like. And I think everybody's just kind of trying to figure it out.
I would say that that's true at the school level too, based on things that Ms. McKenzie said at both of the community meetings that Principal Hall held at the end of July, the beginning of August. I don't know, I lost track at this point. And then at the like 10 things to know about distance learning meeting that he did at the beginning of August. Ms. McKenzie was in all three of those meetings. And she said the same thing in all of them, which is that they know that our schedules are out of control too. And that they were trying to build some flexibility into what they were doing so that they know. So initially what she said at that point was that they were going to record the synchronous sessions, and it does look like they've moved away from that, so that if a child couldn't be in a session, or if they didn't pick up what they had in the session and you don't know what the assignment, like you're looking at a worksheet, like I don't even know what I'm supposed to do here, which is what happened to me yesterday. I learned a new method of multiplication that you could rewatch the video of the class, and it does look like they backed off on that. But she was very clear that they know that, you know, there might be times when we just can't have a kid in a synchronous session, or maybe we set the kid up at the synchronous session and they have wandered off to play wrestlers on the floor, because you were in a meeting and couldn't keep tabs on them. They know that that's going to happen. They're trying to build in enough buffer into the system where we can do something about that. But I would agree that, you know, sending a heads up message like, I'm in a block from this time to this time today, I don't know what's going to happen, we'll try to pick up the pieces after, will help. But it does sound like they know that's going to happen.
Yes.
I actually had that exact situation happen today. I had a Zoom
event that I had coordinated. I needed to be completely focused on it. I emailed Sammy's teacher, or I messaged through Dojo. I told her what was going on. She was like, that's totally fine. And I, also had a very long conversation with my second grader about just like being responsible and just not looking for help for me for the next hour and a half. And of course that did not happen, but it is what it is. And I think like, I just think we have to just be like give ourselves a lot of grace in this, and the learning is going to be different, and it may not be so much like they're going to learn things that are a little bit different, maybe not so much book learning, but there's other really good learning going on. So I'm trying to focus on that and not worry like about if he's missing 5 minutes. I just can't add that to my list of things to worry about.
Please don't.
Yeah, I guess the question are the school and the attendance?
Oh, that they need to log in. The attendance is based on logging into each synchronous Zoom session. But if they're doing that, it's not like they need to be seen on the screen that whole time, right? But I also think like if you're like, listen, this synchronous Zoom session is not going to work today, is there an alternative we can do? That's probably going to be fine. I think just communicating with your teacher is really the best bet. But like if that happens, if they're like, your child didn't sign in, even though you said it or whatever, I don't know, reach out to us, because everyone has to have flexibility and understanding right now. So if that's not happening, then like, please let us know.
And schools are trying to be as generous as possible with the attendance policy. It is the way that attendance is tracked is actually mandated from the state, not even the district. So that's a state sort of thing. The school district, I've seen the version of the attendance policy that it was like for teachers, or not for teachers, but for administrators. They are trying to be as generous as possible. If they log on to the Zoom, they log on to the Zoom, and that's attendance, right? If they complete the assignment on Google Classroom, they can also count that as attendance for the class. They are trying to be as generous as possible for how kids are marked present in any sort of, schools are trying to be generous with that.
So I'll give another example, because apparently I've had a bunch of them. I had to take Sammy with me to my uncle's funeral yesterday, and so he was absent in the morning, and I sent an email to the absent Houston thing. And I got an email back saying, we're very sorry for your loss. Sammy did all his homework and was logged in the afternoon. He was present for the day. So, I mean, I think that the school is being really cognizant of just our life. Like, I didn't want to take him with me, but I didn't have a choice because I had no additional childcare. So it was what it was, and they really worked with us there. So
yeah, as much as possible, they're trying to be generous with attendance because they know it's a challenge. This is a whole different. We are building the plane while we're flying it. Plane is in the air and going, and we are trying to put it together as we are going. And so, as much communication between teachers and parents as possible is ideal, and then communicate with us as much as possible, and we will try and advocate for as much as we can to make it as smooth of a ride as what is not a smooth ride as possible, because it's just not. I mean, I can give you, my child is probably everybody knows mine. Like all the teachers know my child, all the teachers he had before, everybody knows CJ, because CJ is not the easiest, most manageable, most non-active kid, not the most compliant. He's really politely non-compliant. He will tell you, no, thank you, I'm not going to do the thing you told me to do. And we still are working it out. There's lots of like flexibility in what has to happen because that's just the way life is. So teachers are flexible, teachers are being flexible, just communicate with them and let them know what's going on.
Another thing that I've been doing that I think has been helping, mostly to the frustration of my kid, is if there's something that we have a book for, I've been making him write it in the book, like in the Ready Gym book or the math book, instead of submitting stuff online. And I feel like that is helping him focus just a little bit more. But then, we also have those one-off things where like the first 8 pages of our books were ripped out for all of the students in the class. So we're trying to like work around that. But yeah, Go ahead.
Asking for the hard copy of your texts for the reading books, they exist and they probably got more than they need. So if your child is not one who can be like read to over the Zoom meeting, and you want to read it ahead with them the night before or the day before or whatever, or you just want them to have a hard copy in their hand, ask. I already asked and said, hey, for the book pickup, can I get the books? Because CJ can't manage that.
I didn't know that.
Super helpful.
We fortunately had the first 2 books. I have a feeling we're gonna get to the place where we don't have them. But we can make that ask.
Yes. And using the online versions so that your child, when they are more alert, aware, capable, manageable, whether that's Saturday morning or whatever, to read ahead, and using the online versions, those are really helpful. So I know that some teachers have sent out how to log into like Pearson for the ReadyGen text or for the math texts. But yes, you can do that so that you are like previewing text with kids. That's helpful for all kids, stuff like that. So all those things are resources. And as we get further into the year, maybe in the next like couple weeks, once things sort of settle down as much as they possibly can, probably, and we figure out what's happening with leveling, which is a huge issue, we can put together some like, here are some parent resources to try and make your life a little easier. Sort of things as we find out more like what the needs are for families, like what is, like from an education perspective, what would be helpful overall. Any other thoughts, things, stuff coming up for you guys? I've got notes on all the stuff that you guys have said. Some stuff we'll bring back, the issue with the outdoor space. I love the idea of like a lunch Zoom link, and who would be manning that. We'll figure out how we can do that. I think that's a great thing to even come from the school and give them a chance to kind of interact with each other in a really chill way. Miss McGuffin last year used to just put on a cartoon on her shared screen. And so the kids could watch a cartoon, or they would play like Roblox and get on the Roblox with each other or whatever. I don't know what kids do. I don't know anything about Roblox, but that's what they play. And so trying to do some sort of unstructured time. Let's see. The outdoor space, the playground situation, I'll call 440 about that. K2 about flipping to do math in the morning sometimes. It is district-wide, they prefer to do, that is a district thing that they tell that literacy should be in the morning. But I think trying to flip that around sometimes in a time like this is better, is a wise thing to do. Stacking asynchronous time around lunch, that's K2. Digital literacy and art back, and then digital literacy curriculum. I will look into what that is supposed to be, and then get back to us around like what can we advocate for to have happen during this year, since we still have it. Thoughts around virtual backgrounds and how to use Zoom on different devices. Doing some sort of connection on back to school night to try and get parents to sign up on Constella, maybe try and do it like right then and there during back to school night. And then flexibility within the day. Like if a child misses part of a class, what does that mean for attendance? We already sort of talked about that, but making sure that you're just communicating with the teacher, I think all of that should be all right within that. Any other things that came up for anybody who's still here? We really appreciate you guys. I know we were on here a long time, but it's been a long time since we had to kind of chat with each other, and we've got this like new sort of life that we are living and school way that we are doing things. And so I'm sure, yeah, we will probably try and stay within an hour next time, but it was a lot to cover today.
I would add, in terms of a get together, if anyone hasn't been over to Houston lately, the garden is absolutely incredible. The folks across the street on Rural Lane, so if they're like, it is just like one of the most beautiful spots in Mount Airy. And I feel like our students are missing out by not being able to use it. I mean, it's just incredible. So even if you just bring your families, or we can do a meetup there or an outdoor something, it is gorgeous. So anyway, I just want to put that out there.
It's beautiful.
The neighbors have been taking incredible care of it. And they've also been taking, when it was open, they were taking care of the grounds in Houston. the rural lane neighbors. So anyway, that's just a
Yeah.
quick shout out, but the garden is incredible. It's a great
It is
I was
learning.
beautiful.
so if you have a district computer, whatever the heck they're called,
Yes, they connect.
they will connect automatically when you're close to the school. So I
Mhm.
have thought about, like, there's a bunch of picnic benches. There's plenty of room for a group of kids to social distance, like maybe a Friday lesson, which seems a little bit less strenuous, just like walking over there for an hour. You know.
So you can actually get on a
So
Houston
I have
wireless
done
network if you have a district.
Yeah, so I
Yes.
asked the guy when I picked up the Surface, he said it's true. If you're near the school, it'll automatically connect to the school Wi-Fi. You don't
That's
need
actually true for every district school.
Yes, so you don't need a password, you don't need anything. If you're close to the school, it should be able to connect. So maybe I'll test that out and then report back.
Yep. Yeah, it'll log on to PhilaSD's network.
Okay. We might wait, tomorrow's Friday, right? We might be able
Tomorrow's Friday.
it's not long enough, but we might be able to take a walk over there during the day and take some pictures. We were coming back from like the grocery store or something and saw someone like doing gardening. And I'm like, are you one of the teachers? She said, no, I'm just a neighbor that cares about the school.
They spray painted the old rusty metal fencing. I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
I haven't been over there lately.
I was up there when we did the pickup, and the old, like literally original to the school, rusty fencing. They did all of the fencing that's right at the base of where the library entrance is, and the gates that are at the bottom. It's incredible.
Wow.
I mean, yeah.
And I'll also add as just a connection to the space, and I think Miss Bush posted, she's out there every night. We happen to live right next door, so we're out there.
The birds.
The swifts, the birds are in high season, so bringing the kids over there, it's still incredible. And the neighborhood is out. Our kids are usually the only kids out there, but it's not going to last too much longer. So I'd encourage anyone who can to come over around 7:15 or so.
Yeah, she talked about it in STEM class. Must have been today. I don't know. I think CJ had STEM today. And she talked about it so that the kids would be reminded.
We'll come out. I remember the first, so we live across the street from the school, and the first year we were like, what the hell are these people doing standing in the driveway? And then after a while, I don't know if it was because of the school or it might have been like the next year when we started the school or something. I don't know. It's like, oh, they're all watching the birds, and this is an annual thing that happens every year. But it is really cool to watch.
Yes, I'm excited. I think we will have the best possible virtual year we can have, put it like that. Virtual year is hard, but it will be the best possible virtual year that we can possibly have. We're going to do it. It's going to happen. I believe in it. I really do. We appreciate all you guys being on here with us. This has been like really helpful and enlightening. We got some great things, action steps to move forward with. And thanks. Hope you guys have a good, what is it, half day, short day tomorrow? Tomorrow's a short day. How am I not mommying on the short day? He's with his dad on the short day. How does that happen? I don't know. Like, you could be with me on the short day and be with your dad when you have to be in class from 8:10 to 2:15, something like that. But no. Oh, goodness. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Hang in there.
Have a good evening. Hang in there.
Take care, folks.
We will make it work. Promise it'll happen.